We won, we won, we won. We won. We won.
That's about the same. About ready to call it quits. What about you?
Oh my God. The judge just ripped him a new asshole. Oh. 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 Fucking amazing. Oh. Here comes Danny. He came in this way today. Yeah. Yeah.
Next on my name. You're next. And you're gonna get your winning. Those last licks in.
Hey, sure. I'm like having a panic attack almost. Oh. So, oh. Oh. Just, it's a movie. Oh.
It's a high speed and pick up your testimony. Petitioner clearly was being led by his attorney. I would confess, notice that. We all noticed that. We're quite sure. The judge does see everything, but it was still gratifying, and she noted it in her decision, that Mr. Douglas was constantly looking at his attorney, Mr. Moxon, for whether or not he should answer yes or no.
Notice the body language.
And it was like Mr. Moxon would nod his head or shake his head, and that's not okay. And Mr. Campos seemed quite confused at times about what he was even asking for. And he also seemed building the entire Scientology complex, including the sidewalks, the public sidewalks and the public streets. And in his attorney's closing statement yesterday, he repeated a sentiment we've heard from the petitioner repeatedly on the stand in his own testimony, that this is his space and this is his block. And at the same time in their testimony and in Mr. Moxon's argument, he had the unmitigated gall to call my client, who he knows is Mexican American and is here on a special visa. He knows that. And calling him a gang member repeatedly. So, to my mind, calling a public sidewalk area and street my block sounds pretty gang-like to me. And it wasn't my client that spoke like that. No public sidewalk belongs to any individual. It belongs to the people. And it's a place where public speech takes place. And the Supreme Court has reiterated over and over, confirming that the public sidewalks are a place for robust speech. And robust speech is not always pleasant. It can be an argument and a discussion and things that can be said that are upsetting and annoying. And protest is supposed to be annoying and disruptive. So no one has the right to walk on a sidewalk free of annoyances of other people. We have to live with other people, and we all own the sidewalk together. And everything in this case occurred on a sidewalk. And in the first instance where they said my client had committed violence, he didn't commit any violence. He tried to stop further violence the petitioner on his electric scooter that's illegally being ridden on the sidewalk against the vehicle code, on that sidewalk that he was blocking their ability to get past him, he shoved that scooter into my client. My client grabbed the scooter to stop it, and he yelled out, startled, that he was run over and pinned against the tree. So to try to turn that into something my client did to him, it didn't fly, it wasn't credible, and the judge made the right decision. And she carefully went over that evidence.
Yes.
Because the way she gave her decision, she carefully went over that evidence. And I would also like to add, she was very generous with the petitioner's side of this case. This was a 3-day trial. And we had a lot of so-called housekeeping on the first half of the first day because Mr. Moxon did not properly provide his exhibits. And there was a lot of mess that had to be cleaned up, evidentiary objections that had to be ruled upon. So he ended up then getting all the time after that for his case, plus time on the third day. And I'm still not able to put on my case. I shortened my case. I put on only my client because I felt seeing 3 different versions of the video was enough. And we slowed it down and we showed individual frames. We went back over it. His witnesses gave much of the testimony that was very helpful to us. And my client is credible because he's telling the truth. And so I didn't put on the other 2 witnesses that I had in the interest of efficiency and because I felt that the petitioner's witness had helped us out quite a bit and that the video doesn't lie. And the judge was carefully watching everything. And she gave a decision that is the kind of decision that we want. We want to win, but regardless, we want a judge who's paying attention and makes careful note of the evidence and makes a ruling on the evidence. The ruling was made today on the evidence and we prevail. And, Scientology needs to take note. This is the 4th such restraining order. They do different varieties. This is the 4th restraining order on which I've been retained to represent the protester. And we've won on each one. 4 for 4. So I don't know if they want to keep bringing it on because I'm going to keep coming back to court representing protesters.
Yeah.
And I'm going to conduct my trials the same way I conducted this one and the others. And I don't think Scientology should keep doing that. I think Scientology needs to recognize that they're on thin ice. Because it's very clear each one of these litigants that brings these bogus restraining orders is either obviously funded by Scientology. In one of the cases, the litigant admitted they were funded by Scientology, or they are deeply, deeply embedded and ingrained and involved in Scientology, and they're just doing their bidding. In this case, every single person on the petitioner's side was some kind of Scientologist, including the lawyer and his assistant, all the people involved. And they had other Scientology people showing up, some lawyers. This is about Scientology. This is not about these individual people needing restraining orders. They are abusing the restraining order process. And I've been doing restraining orders for 23 years. Restraining orders are serious. Restraining order law, whether it's civil harassment, elder abuse, or domestic violence, is there to protect vulnerable people who need protection. The reason they have a provision that if you are too afraid to notify the other party that you're getting a TRO, you don't even have to give them notice that within 24 hours you're going into court. And that's to protect people who are genuinely at risk. These Scientology restraining order things that they do, they always go in and say they're too afraid to tell anybody so they can fill up their forms with lies, get a TRO, and then it takes a while to get to trial. So my client's been damaged. My client's been damaged that there's been a TRO against him that has prohibited him from doing his protesting at the Blue Building since June 4th. This needs to stop.
You think they knew from the beginning that it was based on nothing? They probably knew.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll tell you what the win is for them. Mr. Valeda took over the leadership for a particular type of protest that was going to be serving unhoused people food and supplies that they need and services in the public areas near Scientology's Blue Building. because Scientology has a history of being unkind and cruel to homeless people, unhoused people. And because the original leader of this had a restraining order just like this served on him a few days earlier, Mr. Valletta stepped up to be the leader. So then they served him with a restraining order. And there were no more people left that were willing to take that leadership role or that could take that leadership role. And so the entire project was scrapped. So that was a win for Scientology. Then they prevented Mr. Valletta from ever being in the area that he normally protests because of this restraining order. So because he follows the law. So now he can go back to protesting and doing what he was doing before, and he was very effective, and that's why they go after him. The reason they went after Mr. Good on numerous occasions is because he's so effective. The reason they went after Mr. Hochstetter was because he was effective. And the reason they're after my client here today, Mr. Valletta, is because he's effective.
So that leads me to ask, same judge with DOA's case, do you think that shows good fruits for DOA?
I have no idea because and I know you're talking about Mr. Hochstetter.
Yeah.
I represented Mr. Hochstetter with my co-counsel on that case, Matthew Struger, because we brought a anti-SLAPP, and we prevailed on one of these bogus civil harassment restraining orders on an anti-SLAPP. It never even went to trial on the merits because the whole thing was found to be a strategic lawsuit against public participation. So the court recognized it was bogus. So I represented him on that only. I do not represent him on this particular restraining order, and I haven't been in court, so I don't have an opinion. I'm going to have to just watch the decision with everyone else and find out. I understand Mr. Hochstetter represented himself on that matter. I've heard he did a good job, and I have not been in court, though, so I can't give an opinion.
Another question I have is, now that it's been minus the anti-SLAPP, but with the tangible trials, now it's been 2 for 2. Judges will talk amongst themselves. The last one with Streets LA, that was in a local law journal, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm wondering, will judges see any potential future cases? And of course, they have to examine each case for its merit, but might they be a little more reflective to throw these type of cases out immediately before it even gets to trial? Might they be more reflective? I don't even know if you can dismiss an RO. Maybe you can't. That's a different set of circumstances. But would they be more reflexive to either dismiss or grant an anti-SLAPP? Is it going to be easier at this point? And will getting to trial even be a lot tougher on Scientology's part?
It's a good question, good set of questions. Restraining orders are taken very seriously here. And in California, we also take due process very seriously. That's why we allow lengthy trials. That's why we allow a lot of what we allow. It sometimes is frustrating to people that feel like, well, wait a minute, there's no basis to this. But at the end of the day, we give everyone an opportunity to put on their case. We give everyone an opportunity with our process. And I don't think any of the judges have any kind of reflexive reaction to these kinds of cases. Having said that, though, I'm not a judge, so I don't know how much they talk amongst themselves about their cases. I can't speak to that. But we all read the Daily Journal.
Right.
That would be lawyers and judges alike. And we are all aware of what goes on in the courthouse. And we're all human. But beyond that, I do have to say that the judges that I go before in this courthouse are highly professional. They do a very good job being impartial, and
They have to.
and they take every case as a new, fresh look, even if it's a known litigant. Unless you have a litigant who...
Now the litigant is known, so that's good. They know what they do. They're more familiar with them versus random random person.
But I don't think it's going to impact their impartiality on case by case. I don't think so. There are other factors, though. I do think there is a pattern here. And I think Scientology is treading on very dangerous territory to continue to do the same thing with these unwitting litigants, often who don't even realize how they're being used, over and over and over. Because here's what happens in the end. I have 3 attorney's fees motions pending against the 3 cases that I won before this. One of those is a mandatory fee statute that means they have to order the fees. It's just a question of certain amounts and all of that kind of stuff, but it does have to be ordered. Two of them are discretionary, meaning that the judge gets to decide whether or not to order the fees. I am going to make those requests on each and every case I win in these Scientology matters. I do not do that on every restraining order case that I've had in my career. In fact, I rarely do it, but on these cases, I will do it. It is important that my clients do not have to pay for their legal defense in these bogus cases. And it is important that the litigants that bring these cases on behalf of Scientology, even though they're not formally doing it on behalf of Scientology, they are, in essence, doing it on behalf of Scientology. Maybe Scientology is paying their fees on the primary case. I'd like to know, is Scientology going to pay their fees if we win our motion for fees? And maybe that's going to make people think twice about bringing these things in the first place.
Do you have any general estimates as to how much they spent in each case?
Oh my God.
They're wasting.
Wow. I don't know how much Mr. Moxon makes an hour.
Curious.
This was a 3-day trial. I have not calculated my hours yet,
Sure.
but it's expensive to go to trial. What I can tell you, another client of mine is present here today, and Mr. Good's case was a 5-day trial. And Mr. Struger and I tried that together. I was first chair, he was second chair. We both worked on it. Our fees motion is asking for over $175,000. So
That's pretty funny.
I am $650 an hour. When I filed my fee motion on Mr. Good's case, my fees went up in the interim. My co-counsel is $950 an hour. Good legal counsel is often not cheap.
Absolutely.
And
Worth every
I
penny.
don't know how much
But it's
Mr.
not
Moxon
good,
is.
so
No.
he might get the discount.
I
She needs a
also
raise,
know
too.
that in Mr. Good's case, opposing counsel is a very good lawyer and a very expensive lawyer. And he had more resources on the case than I did, even with having the esteemed Mr. Struger as my second chair. It was both an honor and incredibly helpful. Even with how much we cost, the opposing counsel in that case, I expect expended more money because an entire firm of resources was on that case, much more resources than I or Mr. Struger have at our disposal. So, and Scientology was paying for all that because that came out in the testimony that they were paying for all the legal fees. So, you know, it's going to get expensive because it's expensive to fight these when protesters have good legal counsel.
And I don't want to pressure you if you don't want to give your personal opinion. That's your choice. But I've noticed there's a difference of representation between Streets LA, which was a tougher case in a lot of ways, and in the Danny case. Do you think the attorney for Streets LA was more effective? And do you think there was some incompetence on Moxon's part? And do you think he was do you think he's been a good attorney in this case?
You mentioned Streets LA, and I thought that was sort of a shorthand for my client, Mr. Good. Do you mean in that
all right.
case opposing counsel? Are you
Opposing, that's what I meant. Yeah. The bald gentleman.
You're asking if
He seemed much better than Kendrick Moxon.
Anthony Brown, you're asking me if
Yeah,
Anthony
yeah.
Brown is a better attorney than Kendrick Moxon.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Was one easier to deal with than the other? How about that?
It's a good question.
Answer that. I'll answer for you.
I'll answer.
Moxon sucks.
Okay, I would like to answer that question.
after.
Mr. Brown is a very competent attorney.
I agree.
He was never rude to me.
That's different.
I have no problem speaking to him on the phone and meet and confer.
Judge complimented him, not this time.
I think that he launched a very rigorous prosecution of his case. I cannot say any of the same things about Mr. Moxon,
Duly noted.
and that is all I have to say about my opinion about the attorney. And it's not my opinion, it's my experience.
Do you feel that Moxon showed you professional courtesy and respect?
A great question.
professional person.
I don't feel
Everyone used to.
I personally
I
don't
think her
feel
face says it all. Her face just answered it all.
Gotcha. He has some work to do about how to treat opposing counsel. And I'm not accustomed to being treated the way he spoke to me privately. And that's all I'll say about it.
Do you feel that the judge was thorough in her ruling and explaining her ruling that it will make it difficult to appeal this case for Mr. Campos?
Yes, I do. But Mr. Campos needs to make that decision if he's going to appeal the case, and he has a given period of time to do so, and we'll see what happens.
Are you buying a fee hearing?
Yes, I will be.
Do you think the church will try again for another RO? They keep getting defeated, and at least I'm here to slap in the face and publicize this. I mean, do you think they'll feel it's worth it anymore? Or
I don't know. That's up to them.
Well, you'll be here otherwise.
be
I love that. That's what I was gonna say. You'll be here otherwise.
Well, we've been through this more than once, and we've been through this. Yeah, we've been through this, and yeah, it's a really ugly thing that people that don't like what they see protesters doing choose to use something in the legal system that is designed to protect people who need protection, and they're using it to stop speech that they don't like. And it's wrong. The best I can do is keep representing the folks that need the help. And so we stop this. I am hopeful that the cost of this will make Scientology think twice and stop purposely getting in this situation. This is a big loss for them.
Any grounds for any of your clients or any potential people that are being harassed by violence to file a class action lawsuit against them?
Good question.
I don't know. I don't do class action. So, one of the things I think makes an attorney a good attorney is to be able to admit that what one knows and what one doesn't know. And I know what I don't know. And I don't know class action. It's not something that I do. So I don't know. I don't know how much of this is going on elsewhere and how much of a pattern there is. I just know that in these 4 cases, Scientology has been interwoven in every aspect of it. Their people, their lawyers, their money. And all of these 4 cases on which I represented the winning respondents, all of these restraining orders, each of the 4 benefits Scientology more, vastly more than it would ever benefit the individual person that brought the restraining order request. So,
And can I ask one more? I'm curious. So now you've done 2 of these cases in a row. Is there a personal impetus as to why you're doing these type of cases? It seems like you've been a big advocate, make sure that people are able to continue protesting in the city of Los Angeles. So is there something kind of in your heart that makes you want to do these type of cases?
sure.
Cool.
I met my client, William Good, because of my activism and because of his activism. And part of why I'm a lawyer is because of what I believe. And I was protesting and doing activism long before I had a law degree.
No respect.
So, but I don't feel like that's something worthy of congratulations. I think we all have beliefs, and we all have issues and things that matter to us. And we all have a way that we can do something about that. Everybody has a different way. And for me, protesting and different types of activism, then when I became a lawyer, that allowed me, in addition to the work I was paid for, to do other things that I wasn't paid for. And some of the work I'm paid for kind of processed into the activism. And, that's when I'm happiest, when, I don't have to separate the work I pay for the work that's the activism. It all gets to come together, and I can be doing, what I want to do to feel like it's making a difference. So, these cases do intersect with what I've done for many, many years, because I know restraining orders very well. And they're very much a part of family law practice, at least in the practice the way I have practiced. And I can recognize when these laws are being abused. And that's clearly what happened here. And, Mr. Good became a client some time ago. And here we are. Before he was involved with the Scientology protesting, because he's done a lot for this city in his police watching, and he has been targeted for that. And he came to me for that originally. So, and I'm happy to help, because I think what he's doing, as I've said before, has helped our city tremendously. Mr. Good is a treasure to the city of Los Angeles, and we should all be really happy that he does what he does, and he puts himself out there and puts himself at risk to make the police behave better so that we are all safer.
Checks and balances.
And the Scientology protesting is also helping our city. And the protesters that are out there discouraging people from getting involved with this cult, it's a cult, and they act like a gang. We've heard the phrase recently, the accusations are actually admissions. And the way they kept calling my client a gang member, and, saying and an agitator, and the words that were used, those can be used about Scientology. Scientology functions like a gang. They are a cult. They are a cult. And they need to have absolute control. And they do seem to have absolute control over their members. And unsuspecting people, tourists up on Hollywood Boulevard, people in the Blue Building area that get involved with this place thinking, oh, I'm just going to look into it. And then they get sucked in, and next thing you know, they're in a cult. I think warning people about that stuff. I've had the opportunity to talk with individuals, and some of you were here, that were raised in Scientology and were subjected to abuses that are horrific. And in my family law practice, I have gone up against child sexual abusers who are the parents of their own children. So some of the stories I've heard from people that grew up in Scientology cross into that territory. And it's horrifying. And the fact that the protesters are monitoring and documenting and filming the transport of children in and out of Scientology buildings, documenting all these bizarre things they see at all hours of the day and night, and then putting it on live stream on YouTube. What a service. What a service. Then that way somebody can access that information. If they get pulled into Scientology, and you go on the internet now, you're going to see a lot of this stuff that many of you are doing, including my client today, Mr. Galeta.
Scooter guy. I mean, he approached me when my very first live. I was like going live, and I didn't even know about these tactics of Scientology. And I came to see my husband, and all of a sudden, this guy on a scooter came to me, and I thought he was drunk, and I kept walking out of his way, and because I was walking out of his way, he never hit me. And then I actually recorded him later, and he was like, "What are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? Blah 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 blah." But it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that they're even propping these guys up like this.
Well, they lost today.
Yeah, beautiful.
Fourth time that they bring one of these, and they lost.
Beautiful. Another question, right? It's an important one too.
Yes, Mr. Good.
Yeah. So there's actually a motion in front of the city council that's right now that's being considered. It's motion, I think it's 240910. And that would prevent protesters from protesting within 300 feet of a religious organization facility, a hospital, schools, or any public facility, which would include this courthouse right here. If that were to pass, we would not be allowed to protest right here. We'd have to go 300 feet away from any of these public buildings, including the LAPD headquarters and City Hall across the street. That was actually mentioned in the case. Mr. Moxon brought that up during argument about what he said was proposed by the mayor to that city council file. What do you think about that? The fact that he brought that up during his argument.
I think Mr. Moxon does a lot of those Scientology things to try to get as much information about whoever's skin he wants to get under as possible. And there's not a lot of information out there about me. but there's enough information out there about me, and there is a Palestine flag sticker on my
I
laptop.
saw that.
So twice in this case, he raised the issue of the way I spoke of Scientology, because here's the first one, and it'll get to the answer to your question. The first time he raised an issue, I think, using the fact that I am general counsel and on the board of directors, founding board of directors of an organization called Gaza's Children. That was created by a colleague of mine to help the children who are victims of what's happening in Palestine right now. And she's a therapist and a lawyer, and we are trying to provide trauma services to these children and their families as best we can. So all of this is something he could have found out about me on the internet. So what does he do in the case? He says that when I referred to Scientology as Scientology, he stopped everything and said that council needs to refer to it as Church of Scientology, and that she's being disrespectful about Scientology, the Church of Scientology, the same way someone would be disrespectful of Jews if they use a term, and he used some other term about the Jewish faith and the Jewish people, and he likened it to that. He did that twice in this case. Why would he do that? Why would he try to paint me in some way that sounds like maybe he's making an anti-Semitism analogy and all of that? He did that a couple of times. He did raise that when he brought up that particular piece of law, that motion. I actually filed public comment against it when it first was raised. I don't think he knew that, but he brought it up and said, this is the trend. This is where we're going to protect people. And he spoke about it like it was something the judge should consider. And the judge should be considering any potential law. The judge can only make a decision on the law on which this entire matter is based, which has nothing to do with what he raised. Do I think that particular motion is a good idea or a bad idea? I think it's a terrible idea. One of the places that you're not going to be allowed to protest is any educational institution. UCLA, UC Berkeley, Cal State LA, Loyola, USC. You're going to enact something. Our elected officials are going to enact something that prevents college students from protesting at their youth. The whole thing was designed, it was brought forward by Councilmember Yaroslavsky, who was annoyed and upset when Palestine liberation protesters went to the front of a synagogue that was being used on a weekend for the illegal sale of land in the West Bank that belongs to Palestinians, and the sales were only being made to Jewish people. And they use the synagogue for these sales, so then they can claim First Amendment right to practice my religion. Nobody was protesting the Jewish religion. Nobody was protesting Jewish people. What they were protesting was the illegal sale. In a country that it's illegal to do that, the illegal sale of West Bank land that belongs to Palestinians to Jewish people in America. That was the protest, and the violence was not instigated by the protesters. It was instigated by Zionists who came into the protest, and the police assisted them. The violence was not instigated by the Palestine liberation protesters, but what came out of that and the way it was reported was wrong and inaccurate at best. And then all of this hullabaloo happened, and that particular motion, in my opinion, only includes educational facilities, medical facilities, because those of us who've been involved in the pro-choice movement remember the days in the 80s when you couldn't get into an abortion clinic because there was a mob around it with dead baby pictures not allowing you to get into the clinic. And we had trouble getting any kind of laws passed to stop that. So they're appealing to the liberals that remember those days. Oh yeah, medical facilities. People shouldn't have to tolerate all kinds of protesting in front of medical facilities. That's all been thrown in. And so they can do what they want to do to go after the Palestine liberation activists in this city who are going to continue to protest against things like the illegal sale of West Bank land to people here.
I mean, I would add also, there were some sexual scandals over at USC and UCLA where the doctors at the hospitals were sexually abusing people. Under this law, if it were to go into place, the victims, the rape victims at the hospital would not be able to protest their own doctors.
That's true. That's true. They would not be able to protest anything. It's not just Palestine liberation. You are right. Anything that you want to protest if you're a university student. Look, I was a student in the 80s at UCLA. I was an undergraduate student. I was part of the occupation of the Charles Young, the chancellor's office. And we were there overnight. We were blocking the entrance to the chancellor's office. It was a fire hazard. And the interim chancellor, while the chancellor was out of town, decided not to call the police, even though we were told we were going to be arrested. And he decided not to call the police because he said, this is what we learn in college. This is what these students are learning, is about how to do a peaceful protest. Civil disobedience is protected in this country, and I am not calling the police. And we were there all night. So what were we protesting? Apartheid in South Africa. What are the Palestine liberation people protesting? Apartheid in Palestine and a genocide. So, you know, things, Mr. Moxon is correct. It is the trend. He is correct. There is a trend to curtail our free speech. None of what's in that motion is constitutional, and the U.S. Supreme Court has been clear that it's not constitutional. So I don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, thinking that if they were to put it in place, you'll be representing me on another case.
I have a question. One of the channels last night voiced his opinion about Danny's case and about he should just take a plea and roll over and not spend all this money proving his case against Scientology. Can you give me your reflection
That
on
was
that?
Danny's original attorney. He told him to do.
I did not, how do I put this? There were settlement offers made. My client and I did not feel we needed to settle the case for the offers that were made. Any settlement that involved my client having to keep away from this individual would curtail his protest activities. And what would happen, and I've experienced this on each and every one of the other cases I've had, there's always a settlement offer, and these were all with different attorneys. There was always a settlement offer. Hey, we're going to end the Pletz order. That's entered in the law enforcement system. So anywhere you go in the state, you get pulled over for traffic violation, they're going to look you up and see there's a restraining order against you. It's not a good thing. It can interfere with your employment. It can interfere with a lot in your life. So a settlement offer usually involves some kind of stay away. It will not be entered into that system.
Oh.
So it can still end up with something like that if you violate it, but it's a softer, gentler, kinder way to keep people apart. And sometimes we use them in the family law context, but generally we don't like to settle a domestic violence order in that way, because if it was a serious enough situation to require a domestic violence restraining order in the first place, maybe we need to figure out something that's still going to protect this person in that way. So these offers that get made, here's why in a general sense, not specific to my client today, but in a general sense, why these kinds of offers are a problem in these kinds of cases. Because we believe that Scientology, and we do have evidence happening, Scientology is really in charge of what these litigants are doing who ask for these restraining orders. If they get some kind of settlement out of one of my clients, oh, you got to stay 300 feet away from my client, but it's not a Pletz order. What do you think's going to happen? Let's use Mr. Valeda as an example. That's the case we're on today. Mr. Valeda is doing his live streaming stationary in one place like he was for a lot of what was going on here. And then the guy in the scooter just rolls into his live stream, hangs around him and scoots back and forth. We have video, that's what he did. And then, okay, he can call Scientology, okay, I'm near him now. Or Scientology can tell him, hey, with our zillion security cameras, we see the dude. He's on the corner. Mr. Valeda's on the corner. Go scoot around him for a while Mr. Belade is going to have to move, even though it's supposed to work that if you put yourself into the vicinity of someone that you have a restraining order against, that's not supposed to work for you. But what happens is if you two are in the vicinity and the person who's got the restraining order against you calls the police, you're going to have to rely on the police to believe you that he came into your space. So Mr. Beleda would still have to stop protesting at the Blue Building to avoid Mr. Campos. And that's what we don't want. And we had the same situation with Mr. Good. This whole idea of like, oh, but it's just this one person, and you just let's make an agreement. You both will stay away from each other. I've had those kinds of offers, and it's ridiculous. The Scientology is calling the shots with these people, and they are monitoring where people like Mr. Good are, where people like Mr. Hofstadter are, where people like Mr. Beleda are, and they are going to send out their people to get in their way and agitate and get some kind of reaction. That's what they're looking for. They got very little reaction out of Mr. Beleda, by the way. In one of the incidents, Mr. Beleda says, nothing. They didn't get what they wanted and they brought their restraining order anyway because they just lied. The video didn't lie. You can't settle these cases. When you've got a case that is baseless, why would you settle it? And the only thing I'd settle it for is drop it now so I don't have to go to trial and I won't go after you for fees. That's fair. But it's not a case with any basis. None of these cases have any basis. So, yeah.
Dorothy, I got a serious question for Danny. This is important.
That's Danny.
This is a, no, this is an important one for Danny. Pepsi or Coke?
Pepsi, of course.
I think this is your lucky.
Well, I just got fixed button. Yeah, Danny. Well, I feel great. Thanks everyone for the support. Originally, we were going to take a settlement because they went after my visa sense. I'm like, oh, I'm okay. If I lose, it's going to stay my record. It's going to be harder. But we contacted my immigration attorney with Dorothy. They had a call and they're like, go ahead. You're free to do it. If you lose, the only thing that would cost it is to delay it a little bit. But with the evidence that we have, we're in the clear. So that's why we ended up going all the way to the end.
You feel it was dirty of them to try to use immigration status as a like a leverage point or a weapon against you?
Oh, hell yeah. But you know what? Either way, if my immigration lawyer would have said no, I would still have risked it all for the movement.
Imagine how dirty Scientology is with immigration. If they really want to talk about immigration, Scientology, you're dirty as fuck. You've been bringing children, making them, grooming them to lie to the ICE officers, to lie to the INS, to tell them lies. OSA grooms you to lie when you're being trafficked straight through the American border. So shout out to ICE that is not doing their goddamn job.
Well, I appreciate everyone here coming, staying here for all 3 days. I know it was boring on the first 2 days. You guys got a show. We got a show.
It was a show. It was a show.
It was great. Well,
I'm happy you won. You deserve to win.
Yeah.
Finally, a little bit of justice. Actually, there's not justice until Campos is made to pay.
Yeah.
He drives a Mercedes.
I'm not
Danny's gonna be driving the Mercedes.
gonna head to Blue and to deal with court. I'm gonna wait until you win.
Yeah.
What's yours, man?
Monday.
And then there's gonna be another win on Monday.
Yeah.
I'm still nervous.
You're gonna win.
Although it's
Yeah.
mouth is bigger.
Say to all the people that can donate to your legal fund.
Well, I really
Yeah, how you
appreciate
feeling,
every
Solomon?
single one of you guys that supported on the legal funds. Thank you guys for the support that you guys have given us over time.
There's just really not
And
much
thank you.
you could do is
Do you feel, what are you thinking right now when you think about your decision to change representation over to Dorothy?
It was well worth it. I'm glad I ended up firing the firm and the lawyer and then have association with the third party because
That was most of their case. So I'm glad I got rid of it.
You don't have a restraining order because that's what it was they were trying to do.
Yeah. So
Agree to a 100-yard stay away order.
at the beginning? Oh, the lawyer, yes.
Is there anything you're going to do differently when protesting based on what had happened?
No.
No.
I'm gonna keep on doing the exact same thing I'm doing.
I think
I just let
very important was when they were showing the video and the testimony, and you were the one talking about let him go, don't give him attention. You know, I don't think you really need to change much of anything at all. I think you were protesting perfectly. I think you were protesting effectively, and that's why they got that restraining order against you.
One way or another. Even the viewers just watching us at home are helping.
Can they expect you at the Blue Building in the coming days and weeks?
On Monday. I'm gonna wait until Scotty's court case to be done.
If I win, I'm pulling out the grill. We're doing a barbecue. Yeah.
We gotta get something big and more street stuff.
Yeah. I got the Blackstone grill that hasn't had meat on it yet.
Pick up some of those plants.
Fighting against Scientology. You know, they tried to stop them, the protest. We're against that. We're fighting against that.
First time versus Scientology.
Thank you. Wallerstein.
The lawyer was Charles O'Reilly, was my good friend. He was number one in my class at Loyola Law School.
Oh, cool. Glad I ran into you.
$35 million.
35 million.
Well, you
That's your cut.
I know it.
I think that's the case that Dorsey.
What is it? Oh yeah, that was the one where Scientology is in the public interest. Wow, so you're going 35. I need to go.
That was.
That's Leah's wing.
Off my pole now. I've been working on my pole.
You're done working on the pole?
And your own hours in there here.
Made your own work drawings?
And I think you guys should leave.
Where have you been? Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You
Oh, they're
haven't seen any
adorable.
of my court drawings?
No, I want to see them.
Sir, this is
They're better than mine.
work at the work. I tried this
last night.
before she started. Well, I had a feeling.
I'm gonna make it as if it is a, he was pretending to be for 9:35, 9. That's totally weird. I'm each new one. Calling out every argument. That I used to really show that.
I have the most people watching, again, perhaps fairly so. I'm not the one that gets the biggest super chat, but you guys are really failing.
I was on the
Hearing
wall.
other people's phone, I feel like a bitch. I'm not lying.
Show me the money.
I'm making rain. Give me some money, goddammit. 7 o'clock, the Magic Castle.
7 o'clock. Tell us what the protest is about.
7 o'clock at Magic Castle. Stan Gerson is one of the main Scientology magicians at the Magic Castle. He's an OT8. He's done over $500 million in real estate transactions. He does a lot of commercial lots, commercial leases in the LA area. And he's doing a magic show in Pasadena Scientology org this weekend. And then in 3 weekends, he's doing a Scientology kids show at the Blue Building. And so we're going to let the Magic Castle know that they have a child trafficking, child auditing, elderly abusing, labor, slaves, indentured servants, one of their magicians working with them. And I'm a former magician, so, and
Breaking news here.
yeah, so 7 o'clock, we're going to be there if anyone wants to join. We're just There's one entrance going in. There's a public sidewalk right in front. They have to go up the hill. So
7 o'clock, Magic Castle, Franklin.
50-50. Jessica, so the chat knows Jessica was right at the 50-50.
No, but
No,
if we had gotten arrested last night,
we
we
would
would
have
not be here right
Yeah.
now.
Yes, no, but he did text that and say that. He said that.
And I was at a shooting last night, so I couldn't. There's only one thing left to do now. There's one thing left to do now. Freestyle. We need to celebrate.
Just to thank you. I guess you could film me. I said, wait, hold on.
Here we go.
Let me fix my tie. Feel like a mess. Well, just a little background. Not that I'm amazing at freestyling, but it's well mentioned. You can all look this up on YouTube. But when I was 15 years old, Ice-T did a reality show at my prep school. So he taught me and 7 other kids how to rap. And I was a freestyler. So at the end, we opened for Public Enemy. And I was terrible. So some guy threw a cup in my head. One guy threw a nickel at me. And then I was trying to take my mic in the audience. And one guy was trying to forcibly take the microphone away from me. But with all that being
Is that on video?
yeah. If you
Okay.
YouTube Ice-T's rap school, it was a 1 season on VH1 in like 2006. The whole thing. I'm honored. Thank you for watching it. It's really boring. So I admire you sat through that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm shocked somebody actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's Danny versus Phil. Phil said he's been ill, had to take the pill. Just look at his back. The pain is whack. It's all about to cause a heart attack. Go back to black. He's on his scooter. He's on the move. He don't have that groove. He got a mattress on the bed. The pain, he said, goes to his head. That's why he's been harassed. That's why he's been threatened. That's why he's been yelled at. But he's also been spat at of the protesters. He's tried to stop the First Amendment. He's trying to stop it again. We won't let that happen because we ain't capping. Danny's got the rep. Danny's got Dorothy. He clicks her heels. Everything disappears. Scientology, thank you all for the support. Come and help support freedom. You know you want some. There
That's
you go.
right.
Yeah.
Wait.
Okay.
One more song. The anthem. Give it to us because if it's used in your case, they tried to say that this was like an act of violence because he was singing this song. So you want to give us? You want to sing to us right here?
You wonder why they call you bitch. You wonder.
Right. Hey, make sure you get a job. This guy travels all over the country.
I tried.
And you know what?
Denver today.
Don't just give it for him. Give it for his awesome dog.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Shout out to Gizmo. Pinata, you used to lose some weight. We'll get there. And hey, one more song. Just so we can, if we know this one by Queen, We Are the Champion.
Okay.
Yeah. We are the champions.
Andy, come on, say.
Keep on fighting till the end. No
Time for
scooters. No time for scooters. We are the champions. We are the
champions of the
world. For you, Daddy. Thank you. Yeah, we will rock you. No fights to death.
All right. I'm
Fights to death.
go to one of these other streams. I'm ending the stream.
And another one fails, and then moxon fails.